Tunisia is a North African country that is located on the southern part of the Mediterranean Sea. Although today Tunisia has a relatively high level of development compared to some of the other African nations, it still suffers from the effects of political, social, and economic problems. In both rural and urban areas, poor households tend to be above average in size, have a high dependency ratio, and tend to not be headed by young breadwinners. In both rural and urban areas, most poor earn their living as wage earners, followed by self-employment in non-agricultural activities.
Child labor continues to be one of the largest social issues in Tunisia because of the lack of appropriate policies to protect the rights of the children.
Unfortunately, domestic violence is commonplace in Tunisia. In fact, 1 out of every 5 Tunisian women is a victim of some sort of domestic violence.
With our $10 billion grant, we have made a development plan for Tunisia that focuses on 3 main issues, namely the water crisis, the shortcomings in the education system, and the issue of unemployment.
Due to Tunisia's growing population along with frequent droughts, the agriculturally dependent population has been adversely affected by the water crisis. Also, with the growth of the phosphate and oil industries in Tunisia, water pollution has risen dramatically, but the government has failed to properly address this growing issue. In fact, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, Tunisia is the 9th most water-stressed country in the world.
The problems with the Tunisian education system stem primarily from 3 sources: corruption, limited access, and poor management of resources. According to the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development's assessment of the Tunisian education system, 54% of the students receive private tutoring from their teachers that is not available to other students. The organization also found that these kinds of breaches in academic ethics are widespread in the Tunisian education system. Also, there is a serious lack of proper schools in the rural areas of Tunisia.
As both a symptom and a perpetuating cause of many of Tunisia's societal problems, high unemployment rates have crippled the economy of Tunisia. One major cause of unemployment is the previously mentioned poor education system. As a result, there are less people to fill the sectors in the economy that are most likely to grow and generate wealth. Tunisia's unemployment rate extends to the youth of the nation as well. Tunisians ages 18 to 25 comprise about 20% of the country's population, yet make up about 40% of the unemployed population. Restrictive labor regulations also make it difficult for educated people to find jobs. In order to solve the problem of water scarcity and pollution in Tunisia, the government must recognize and address the long-standing water crisis. Allocation of water resources should be based on the average rainfall of the region in question. Places that get less rainfall should be the top priority for Tunisian government in terms of water system reformation. Also, dams should be constructed in order to better control the flow of water throughout the country. The phosphate industry must be regulated in order to ensure that the leftover radioactive material from the phosphate refining process be left underground instead of in the groundwater. Finally, the government must regulate and oversee offshore oil fracturing to ensure that it is done safely and that the oil does not contaminate the country's source of water.
Solutions to Tunisia's education would include building quality primary and secondary schools in rural and impoverished areas. This would start to incorporate a much larger demographic into the educational system. In addition to this, a thorough reform of the whole system is required to create any lasting change. This should be done by enforcing a code of professional conduct for teachers that requires teachers to provide same services to all students, regardless of the socio-economic status. Additional resources have to be spent on training teachers and having better national standardized tests to monitor educational proficiency.
In order to decrease unemployment in Tunisia, jobs like building schools, building dams, and jobs related to tourism should be created. Also, labor regulations such as high fiscal and regulatory costs of hiring and firing workers, barriers to entry, exit, and competitiveness of Tunisian companies must be reformed. Most importantly, Tunisia must increase its economic ties with Europe in order to become more a part of the global economy.
In total, we will use $2.5 billion to address the problem of unemployment in Tunisia. Our main concerns, to which we will allocate $500,000 each, are reforming education and increasing ties with Europe.
To address the water crisis, we will spend $3.5 billion, $3 billion of which will be equally spent on the issues of allocation of resources based on rainfall and the regulation of phosphate and oil industries.
Finally, we will spend $4 billion to reform the educational system. Two of our main concerns, to which we will allocate $1 billion each, are building schools in impoverished rural areas and training teachers. Here's how our $10 billion grant will be split among our three main issues. We hope you consider our development plan and grant us the money.